Good evening. Thousands of inmates test positive for COVID-19 in prison clusters across the state.
Now, imagine being granted parole, but staying locked up because the pandemic caused a class to be canceled. Tonight, a top attorney warns investigative reporter Ben Hall taxpayers could be on the hook for class action lawsuits as a result.
I applaud the fact that they say we're testing everybody.
Attorney David Rabin says the mass testing in Tennessee prisons is the right step. But he says as the number of positive cases grows, testing alone is not enough.
I believe that the government, unfortunately, is leaving itself open for a lawsuit.
Testing of nearly 20,000 Tennessee inmates has revealed several prison hotspots. Core Civic's Trousdale Turner leads with more than 1,000 inmates testing positive. This week, Northwest Correctional Complex had 288 cases, and Hardeman County had 151. The first hotspot, Bledsoe County, now says 585 inmates have recovered. Statewide, 3 inmates have died.
I'm not saying that lawsuits are inevitable if the government uses due care to protect people.
Rabin says one of the most obvious things that can be done is release inmates already granted parole, but who are still locked up because they have to take a class.
So he's just stuck right now, there for no reason, really.
One mother who talked to us by phone says her son was granted parole on March 18th. He then learned he needed to take one more class before being released. But she says the Bledsoe County Correctional Complex where her son is stopped offering the class because of the coronavirus.
It's just hard to believe that they're just going to let him sit there and they're not doing anything about it.
The parole board itself could simply say, we're going to waive that requirement, or we'll make you take the program out on the street instead of in prison.
The inmate's mom worries about her son remaining needlessly in a prison where more than 580 people have tested positive.
They did say if his cellmate had coronavirus, that they was going, even if he didn't have it, that they was going to make him lock down in the cell with his cellmate.
The Board of Parole released a statement saying it is working to safely release offenders where possible, and said the board internally reviewed candidates who may have been granted release but may not be able to complete their required pre-release conditions through no fault of their own, and some have already been released. The Department of Corrections said the virus is causing some disruption in programming as inmates are adapting to a new normal, which is consistent to what free world citizens are adapting to as well.
But you're not talking about hundreds of thousands of people. You're talking about maybe 1,000 folks who could be released on parole who've already been granted parole. The harder call are those folks who are coming maybe 6 to 8 months to a year to the end of their sentence.
Rabin said only the governor can give clemency and release inmates who are close to the end of their sentences. Other states have a compassionate release law that allows judges to intervene, but Tennessee does not.
I'm not talking about releasing extremely dangerous people. We have prisons just for that.
Nationwide, more than 300 inmates have died from the coronavirus, according to a UCLA study. David Rabin says there has been talk about class action lawsuits, and ultimately taxpayers could be on the hook for those costs. Ben Hall, News Channel 5 investigates.